How's it going, everyone? It is Prashan here, and we have a new card coming to Marvel Snap, and that is Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. He is a 2/2, and when your opponent ends a turn with unspent energy, draw a card with 10 or more power, which I think is pretty good, in my opinion. But I'm going to let you know if this card is definitely a cop or drop. Cop means that you should get this card and spend your resources on this card, or it's a drop. Don't even waste your time. You should avoid it like the plague and avoid it like Bruce Banner, right? um, so let's go into this card. We'll talk about its pros, its cons, its counters, what it synergizes with, and I have a Hulk family tier list. And let's go right into the Hulk family tier list. And here it is. So we have Red Hulk, Scar, She Hulk, Hulk, Thaddeus, Thunderbolt Ross, and poor old Bruce Banner. Sorry, Bruce Banner. So this is the Hulk family tree. I think I got everyone here that I needed to get. We have Red Hulk, Scar, She Hulk, Hulk, Thaddeus, Bruce Banner. So I have Red Hulk as S tier. I believe this card was pretty good, so good when it first came out. He's already been nerfed. And then, of course, we have our A tier cards. We have Scar, She Hulk, and Hulk. I think Scar and She Hulk are like A1, A2, like A B cards. It just depends on your board state or your energy state, right? So if you have a lot of 10 power cards on the board, your Scar is basically free. Or if you skipped that turn 6 or you skipped that turn 5, your She Hulk is a 0 or she is a 1, and you could just put big power on the board. And then with your Hulk, he's just a big body on the board. And if you're playing high Evo, he gets that extra power, right? So I think those three cards, I think they're A tier cards, especially when you're first starting out in the game. Hulk is pretty decent as a big body, like Hulk and Giganto, those big cards that you're slamming on the board whenever you're first starting the game. And then we have Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. I think it's all contingent on what your board is or what your energy state is for your opponent, right? So if they're spending energy every turn, then this card sucks. And if they're not, this card is good. You're just pulling big body after big body after big body, right? So I think Thaddeus is contingent on the board. And I feel like what the obvious choice is to put Thaddeus with Red Hulk because they both synergize together. Technically, Thaddeus is Red Hulk, and Red Hulk is Thaddeus. So I think those are the obvious choices. We'll go into some decks later on to the video that I conjured up. But yeah, I think this is the Hulk family tier list. If I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments. If I'm right, let me know down in the comments. Do you guys like stuff like this tier list? Just showing you like the Hulk family. And then, of course, we have Bruce Banner. He needs some help. He's falling off the tier list. He should be less than D, in my honest opinion. He's falling off. He's falling off. I think if they like up the chances of him hulking out, I think if it was a 50-50, I think that would be pretty good, right? Like 50-50, 2 drop, or would that be too OP? Like, change the percentages. Like, make it 50-50. Make your opponent try to Red Guardian this thing. Make your opponent try to use like other cards to get rid of this. Like make them try, like make your opponent scared. This is a card that should make your opponent scared. So let's take a look at the spotlights this week. We obviously have Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, we have Blink, and we have Nebula. If you're a completionist and you want to spend all your keys to get the He, Tai, and You variant for Thaddeus, here it is. And then we have the Jelly Pixel variant for Blink, and we have the Sycamore Vodka variant for Nebula. Overall, I think this is a solid week for spotlights. Nebula is a pretty good card if you're trying to play control decks, and then Blink, she's making a slight appearance again in Hella decks. I think she's an awesome card as well. So I think overall this week isn't a miss. But if you already have Blink, if you already have Nebula, and you're not really interested in Thad, I think this is a skip. And you can always use your resources next week for the next card. But if you're missing all three cards, then obviously I would say go for it. Or if you're missing Blink, go for it. You might hit Thad, or you might get a cool Nebula variant. I think this variant is pretty cool. So solid week for the spotlights. Overall, I give this maybe a B, a B spotlight week as far as like Marvel Snap goes. I think following weeks it might be a little bit better. I think we have Baron, Zemo, and Loki and Red Wing next week. That might be a little bit better than this year. But yeah, these are the spotlights this week, and I have the artist on the cards. I know some were asking for the artist on the cards, so there's the artist of the variant. So let's go into some of the counters and synergies, and then we'll go over some of the decks I made for Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. So when it comes to synergies for Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, it comes to mind a lot of cards, right? So you're gonna think about any big body that could go out onto the board. So you have cards like Arrow, you have cards technically like Atuma, you have Crossbones, Coal Obsidian, Black Cat, Destroyer, Death, Hulkling, you have Heimdall, Helicarrier. Those are the cards that we think about. Red Hulk, Sasquatch, Red Skull, Scar. The list goes on and on. Infinite, obviously. Typhoid Mary. Those are the cards that are big bodies that Thaddeus can pull out of your deck to thin your deck. That way you can get smaller cards that you need as well. So those are definitely the synergies when it comes to Thaddeus. And a few other synergies too that comes to mind. You have to put in Luna Snow. Luna Snow gives your opponent an extra energy with her like ice shard crystal. That way your opponent's thinking, oh, I'm spending all my energy this turn or next turn so I can do all of this. But no, think again. You have the extra energy from Luna Snow, and it basically throws a wrench, so you're able to draw an extra card. And let's talk about some of the counters. Obviously, with Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, he's not ongoing, he's not on reveal. This is his text. His text is his text. It's not going away, right? So you can't Cosmo it, you can't Enchantress it, like you can't do any of that. Can't use Echo. So obviously, Red Guardian is a card that takes away this character's ability. And we also have Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike is another card that has popped up recently in Marvel Snap in this meta to get rid of cards. Like we've had 2099 that the Lady Deathstrike gets rid of cards. We have Bullseye 2, Lady Deathstrike. That was a target for Lady Deathstrike as well. And we have Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, which is also a target for Lady Deathstrike. So tons of cards for Lady Deathstrike. If you thought this was a bad card a few months ago or a year ago, think again. She is back and she can mess up a lot of things when it comes to Marvel Snap. And then obviously energy, right? So if your opponent is using all of their energy every single turn, then obviously this is a counter for Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. And it's not a feel good moment, right? So let's go into some of the decks that I conjured up, and then hopefully these could work on day one while playing Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. So it's time to look at some decks. We have the first one here, Big Lockdown. We have Zabu, Ebony Maw, Psylocke, Thaddeus, Surtur, Storm, War Machine, Atuma, Crossbones, Coal Obsidian, Doctor Doom, and the Infinite. So basically, turn one, you're going to try to play Zabu. Zabu is going to discount your Atuma, Crossbones, Coal Obsidian, and your Storm, as well as your War Machine. Turn two, you're going to try to play Psylocke. Just in case you don't get that Zabu, you play Psylocke. Then you try to play either Storm or you try to play a War Machine if that's the route you want to go. But if you don't have either of those, of course, on turn two, you're either going to play Thaddeus, or in turn three, you're going to play Surtur, and then you go from there. You just play big card after big card after big card. Zabu is basically here. That way you could play your Coal Obsidian onto your Zabu, and then you're able to sometimes sneak your Crossbones in certain places. Atuma is just here because he's a 4 cost. That could be a 3 cost. He might cost you some cards in a lane, but you want to put him in a lane by himself and then put big cards on top. And then since we have Storm in this deck, I want to go Dr. Doom just to surprise them. So basically, you're thinning out your deck. That way, you can pull your Doom, and then you can just spread out your power across the board because they're just thinking that you're playing big cards. And of course, if we're playing War Machine, you're going to have Ebony Maw, and you're going to have the Infinite, right? That way, you could take advantage of War Machine. So this is the first deck I have. Might be good, might be bad. We'll see when Thaddeus first comes out. We'll see if this deck works. Hopefully it does. Let me know down in the comments, what are you guys thinking with Thaddeus? And the next deck we have here is a Hulk Task Force. I was just messing around. We have Quicksilver, Bruce Banner, Psylocke, Thaddeus, Magic, Cosmo, Moon Girl, Wiccan, Red Hulk, She-Hulk, Scar, and the Infinite. So turn 1, obviously, we're going to play Quicksilver. Turn 2, we have many options. We could play Bruce Banner just for some cope, just to play something on 2. You could also put in Kate Bishop if you want. I think Kate Bishop might be the better option, but I just wanted to go with the theme. We have Psylocke here, and we have Thad to go on turn 2. And preferably, you want to play your Psylocke on 2. That way, you could play your Wiccan on 4, or Wiccan on 3, and then go from there. We also have Magic and Cosmo, so you want to play Magic to prolong the game. And we also have Cosmo to protect one of your big cards. Moon Girl is basically here to copy your She-Hulk. That way you can have multiple She-Hulks on the board or multiple Scars. And then you skip a turn. You skip turn 6, I believe. You skip turn 5. You skip turn 5. And then turn 6, you could play some She-Hulks. Or you could skip turn 6 and you have free She-Hulks and an Infinite. So that is the route you want to go. And then if they have unspent energy, your Red Hulk gets bigger, or your Thaddeus pulls another card. So that is another deck I have just to mess around with Thaddeus. So what do I think? Do I think this card is a cop, or do I think it's a drop? Honestly, I'm torn. After making these decks, I was thinking this card is a drop because it's, I don't know, decks are decks, but anytime you could draw a card or get the card that you want, because you're thinning your deck out with big cards so you can draw another card that you need for a certain combo, I think that is always good. But the bad thing is, too, sometimes it doesn't work or you get countered, and it's a sucky feeling. So I think if you like to play big cards, if you like to play Surtur decks, and there's more cards in the future that might go with Thaddeus, I definitely think this is a cop. But if you're more combo-centric, or if you play like Move, if you play a Destroy, if you play those types of decks, I think this is a drop. Overall, I think this is a cop. I think this might be a key piece to decks in the future. I think this is pretty good with Surtur. Surtur was plenty of strong and made a comeback the last week of the season, last season. So I think Surtur decks are here to stay. I think anytime you can put a lot of power on the board, and this helps you put more power on the board, it's always good. So I think this is a cop. Hopefully I don't regret it, but we'll see. Time will only tell in Marvel Snap. So till next time, be safe, keep on snapping, and peace.